Jessica was sitting on a chair with her legs crossed and nervously tapping her foot. She was really angry, and it was visible the vein on her neck bulged, her jaws moved back and forth. She couldn't calm down because the situation was getting on her nerves. Jessica crossed her arms on her chest, pouted her lips, and nervously looked around. She was irritated that her husband didn't see any problem in the situation. She saw it as a whole tragedy. They were already struggling to make ends meet, and now he had lost his job. Meanwhile, she was about to go to a fertility clinic for IVF, and soon they wouldn't even have enough money for food, let alone a child. Jessica silently burned her husband with her gaze. They had been trying to have a baby for 3 years and had been treated for infertility for 3 years. Then they had to wait in line for IVF, and now they had no money to pay for it. She was furious and, at the same time, in deep despair. Music. Jessica, come on, stop freaking out. We'll go later. Why are you starting this now? Besides, you're still young enough to have a baby, and the guy doesn't give a damn how old he is. Should I have put up with all the boss's abuse just because I needed a job? I'm also a human being, and I don't want to put up with anything, he said insistently, looking at his wife with irritation. I'll find another job. What are you starting? I swear it's like dealing with a child. Who am I to you, a little boy on a string? If you can't earn enough money, why should I have to support the whole family? Yes, because you're a man, she interrupted him. Her scream echoed throughout the apartment, and it even seemed like the windows were shaking, although I doubt that very much. Now why should I worry about money if I'm married? What the hell do I need a man for if he can't even provide for his family? As they say, with a husband, it should be good. I can live badly myself. Where have you seen that a woman should also deal with money? I'm already working, but it's not enough to support you, you jerk. I'm 23, married, and forced to work. Yes, all my friends laugh at me because their men provide for them, and you're still going to give me conditions? Your infantility is driving me crazy. A real child, just take your handkerchief and blow your nose. You can't do anything by yourself. You don't want anything. If you don't want to provide for the family, then go get married and let someone else support you. It's a shame, not a man. How sick of me every time I find a job for you and get you employed, you find 1,001 reasons to mess it all up. What is it this time? Did your boss give you a sideways glance or, God forbid, give you a reprimand? You are a hired worker. You must obey, you foolish head. He could see that she was reaching her limit, that her mind couldn't take it anymore. Her voice was breaking, and now she was just crying, occasionally saying, I'm tired. We need to end all of this. I'm tired of carrying everything on my shoulders. Don't you get tired of playing the victim? You women have become so audacious. If you want equal rights, then let it be on equal terms. Now I'll stay home, and you go to work, since you're so smart. All you do is throw tantrums. If working is so easy for you, then why aren't you a millionaire already? It's so simple. She's ashamed to confess to her friends. Yes, your friends sleep around with whoever just to get gifts for themselves. You should learn from your aunt, who doesn't care about anything. She works like a horse and earns a lot. She doesn't have a cat, a child, or a man. That's really disgraceful. He was getting angry and wasn't going to stop. He was really tired of all these talks about money. She had arranged a job for him for the 3rd time, and for the 3rd time, he was fired from the position simply because he didn't like it. He didn't like the offices, the gloomy faces of his colleagues, and the arrogant young bosses. It was all just nonsense. He was angry because he wanted to be a boss himself, but he didn't want to work his way up the career ladder. He leaned against the door jamb again, crossed his arms over his chest, and said, "You want too much, Jessica. Look at her, she's like a queen. A man should provide and feed and help around the house. What will you do then? If you were really beautiful, maybe we could talk like this, but you're just an ordinary girl. You know, my mother always said that work is for unattractive women. A beautiful woman will always be able to get by on her smile and slim waist, so draw your own conclusions. He stormed out and slammed the door with all his might. His head was throbbing. He didn't even realize he was outside the building entrance. He looked up at his apartment window, but immediately shook his head in disapproval, thinking he should have divorced a long time ago. The problem was that despite all the angry words he said, he knew that any other woman would have kicked him out long ago. Jessica would get angry, yell, but then forgive him and take him back. He just had to come back with a gloomy face and say he was trying his best, but luck wasn't on his side. She would hug and cuddle him and keep giving him money for beer and cigarettes. That's all he needed. Besides, he had another such girlfriend, only dumber and better off. He could take money from one, bring it to the other, and keep some for himself. I'm well set up, I must say, he chuckled to himself. Originally, he had 3 women, but the situation began to get out of control, so he decided to keep only one mistress on the side. He walked along the building and headed to his lover's place to spend some useful time there. He needed to relieve tension, and no one could do it better than her. Jessica stayed home, stood under the cold shower, hoping it would cool her passion. She jerked the handle of the cheap cabin and shivered with cold. She got out, dried herself off, and went into the living room to be alone, cooled down, and think. How did she end up in this mess? She used to be promising, quite successful, and satisfied with her life. And then she got married and found herself not just in a mess, but in a mess with stakes full of snakes. On the one hand, she wanted to regain her former life, but on the other hand, she just wanted to throw everything to hell. But some feeling prevented her from breaking off the relationship. She was afraid of being alone, and it would be shameful in front of her mother and friends. At 23, she was already a divorcee. It was just too much. Jessica lowered her head into her hands. She knew what would happen next. He would now walk around the courtyard to calm down. Maybe he'd have a beer with a friend, then he'd come back home, hug her, and she would forgive him. It was as if she was in a damn wheel and had absolutely no control over her own life. Jessica walked up to the window, sat on the windowsill, and looked down. The yard was full of children playing, frolicking on the playground, and spending time together. There were both little ones and older children. Moms with strollers were walking around. Their faces were happy, somewhat spiritual. Jessica desperately wanted to become a mother, to experience pregnancy and all its hardships, just so she could hold her own child in her arms. She knew that motherhood was not easy, but it was her dream ever since she was 17 and unhappy with her own family life. She had wanted a family of her own. Her mother was always searching for a new man and never gave Jessica and her brother the attention they needed. When Albert left the family, Jessica was left alone with her dreams of having a child and a family of her own. One of the main reasons she wanted to get pregnant was to escape her loneliness. Even when surrounded by people, she always felt alone. She dreamed that having a child would fill that void and motivate her to start fresh. But the reality was different. 3 years of trying, 6 months on a waiting list, and now everything was back to zero because her husband decided to quit his job. Jessica wiped away a tear. She heard the door slam in the hallway. 4 hours had passed since her husband left, but she hadn't noticed. She didn't turn around, but she heard him go into the shower. He must still be angry. He came out, went into the living room, then returned a few minutes later, leaning against the door frame. He liked to stand there, whether he was watching her cook, fighting with her, or waiting for the kettle to boil. It was his starting position every time things went wrong. He came back here. I went to John's. I'm going on a business trip with him tomorrow, so you can pack me up. Want money? I'll bring some back in a couple of weeks, he said coldly. I'll be working like a dumb laborer, the only thing I know how to do. You always said if you can't work with your brain, work with a shovel. So, I'll go work with a shovel. That's all I have to say, he concluded and left for the living room. Jessica didn't move because she simply didn't believe him. The man who considered it a chore to even lift his socks and carry them to the trash bin, who considered vacuuming the apartment hard work, would never do physical labor on the first day alongside other men. He would collapse or even cry. Jessica started gathering things, curious about how he would react. She thought that in a couple of hours, his patience would run out, and he would give up. He would just say that he couldn't do it anymore, that he was tired and wouldn't go to work. But he held on like a stubborn tin soldier. Her husband dozed off on the couch, apparently tired from wandering around the yard, as Jessica thought. She didn't suspect that he had been with his mistress all this time. Jessica packed her suitcase, then suddenly remembered that there was a thermos in the car. She wanted to get the car keys from her husband's jacket but stumbled upon 2 vacation vouchers. She was stunned. Jessica immediately took a photo of the vouchers, making sure that the names and surnames were visible, then put them back and decided to wait until he left. There was no point in throwing a fit. She would have believed him if he said that he was taking her to the seaside to apologize, to mend their relationship. But one voucher had his name on it, and the other didn't have her name at all. It listed a completely different name and surname. Jessica didn't even get angry because she had no energy left after the emotional roller coaster of the day. She sighed heavily, grabbed her wallet, and went to the store. All the way, she thought that her husband was cheating on her, and of course, he would hide it until the end. Lie about work, and then he would come back all upset with another lie that they didn't pay him. That was his plan. She didn't know. Jessica thought that unfamiliar people didn't go to the seaside. People went on vacation with their mistresses, with whom they had been in contact for a long time. She understood that if he took her to the seaside, then most likely they had been seeing each other for at least 6 months, and all of this was happening right under her nose. Jessica bought everything she needed and headed home. She replayed the situation in her head dozens of times. When she got home, she couldn't even find the words to say to her husband. He hugged her, but she felt disgusted by it. "Come on, Jess, it's just a business trip. But think of how much money I'll bring back. If everything goes well, I'll be traveling with John, you know. He provides for his family, so don't worry about me. His wife doesn't need money in this marriage. She spends it on her lips, lashes, and everything else without holding back. I'm sure everything will be fine," he said. They had dinner, and the man went to bed early, saying he needed to wake up soon. Jessica took his phone and checked his messages and social media. She noticed he constantly cleared his conversations, but she also found out that a girl was constantly liking his posts. She went to the girl's page and was shocked to see her name and last name. She found her profile on her phone to confirm her suspicions and saved it in bookmarks. Jessica was deeply disappointed in her husband, but she wanted to teach him a lesson. She wanted him to know that women are not toys, and she wouldn't allow him to treat her that way. Early in the morning, he left, and she was left alone in the apartment. She thought about the situation, and a great idea came to her mind. She put it aside and started preparing all the documents for the divorce, just in case. She wanted to make sure that he wouldn't get a penny of her belongings after the divorce. 2 weeks flew by quickly. The man, tanned and happy, said goodbye to his lover and hid home with a small suitcase on wheels. He thought about how to tell his wife about what happened. Then he considered himself a genius because he came up with a brilliant idea. He would tell her that they were ripped off and didn't get paid. She would feel sorry for him for working so hard physically and not getting any money for it. He was so relieved and happy that he had a good time. He knew he could easily get away with it, and she would forgive him anyway. She would continue to support him while he lived his life. He approached the house, put on a mournful face, and went to the apartment. When he knocked on the door, there was only silence. He knocked again, but still nothing. He was getting annoyed. Simon took out his keys from his suitcase and tried to use them in the lock, but they didn't fit. He kicked the door as hard as he could, hoping that his wife, who was supposed to be sleeping, would finally wake up. But it wasn't Jessica who opened the door. It was a huge tattooed man with a crooked grin and a scar on his face. He came out and towered over the skinny man like a rock. "Did you think you could mess with my property?" he asked, spitting on the floor. Simon shuddered, not understanding what was going on. He called out loudly for his wife, but she didn't respond. Then the man grabbed him by the chest and pinned him to the door. "So, you were fooling around with a woman instead of working. Well, now you can go there and stay. Got it? You lost a woman like that. Don't let me see you here again, you freak." The man finished his tirade with an insult. He let go of the man, closed the door, and Simon was left alone on the staircase. He was in shock, replaying what had just happened in his head. So his wife found a lover, or did she rent out the apartment? What was going on? She couldn't have known that he went to the sea for a vacation with his mistress, not to work. Simon didn't know what to do. He didn't even know how long he had been standing there under the door on the staircase. He stared at the door. He was about to knock again, but decided against it. He looked around and suddenly saw a photo lying at the foot of the stairs. He approached and picked it up. In the photo, he was hugging his mistress. He went down the stairs, picking up more and more photos of his betrayal. And when he reached the bottom, he was staring at a huge banner that read "Dirty Cheater" with a photo of him and his mistress in swimsuits. It was very clear from the photo that there was nothing to hide there. Simon even turned pale, as if he had been electrocuted. He didn't expect his wife to not only find out about his infidelity, but also to take such a beautiful revenge. He flinched to the side as the guy who had opened the door for him came out of the entrance. "Don't be afraid, kid. I'm not going to hit you," he said loudly and laughed. His laughter was loud and rolling. It was pleasant to listen to, but looking at this guy was, at least, scary. "And I'm not your wife's lover, but she doesn't live there anymore. I live there. So if you come to me again, I'll rip your head off and stuff it in there where you were thinking when you were cheating on your wife. And what's the point of cheating anyway, my God?" He laughed again, and despite the fact that his laughter was offensive, well, it was contagious. Simon barely restrained himself from laughing too. "Losers like you are not even men, but a disgrace. You cover it all up by saying that men are polygamous animals, not developed people. Do you want to be like an animal? Go live in the woods. Got it, dear? There are so few good women, and this one works, and she's beautiful and smart, and you went after that scraggy rat. A woman should be a woman with curves, so there's something to hold on to, and this one is a monster, I swear. Okay, Simon, get out of here nicely before I hang you on this old branch, or I'll sneeze, and you'll piss yourself. Look at you trembling with fear." The man laughed again. Simon quickly went away, literally feeling everyone looking at him, everyone laughing at him. He hurried to the house where he had left this morning. He took out a loan to go with his mistress to the sea. He expected to pay it back with his wife's money because he was 1,000,000% sure she would forgive him. But not only did she not forgive him, she also beautifully taught him a lesson, exposing his deception. He turned to the house and was almost at the mistress's house in 20 minutes. He looked at the time and couldn't believe he had left here 3 hours ago. Was all this humiliation lasting so long? Although when he was there, it all seemed like an eternity that would never end. He was tormented by questions. How did his wife find out about his affair? Where did she get those pictures? And where did she go? But the main question that plagued him was how he was going to repay the loan he took out to buy vacation tickets for himself and his mistress, who begged him for them. The resort wasn't cheap, and the 100,000 he borrowed at a high interest rate would soon turn into an overwhelming sum, especially for someone who doesn't work. He stood outside the entrance, then walked towards the apartment and knocked on the door. He heard a female and male voice behind the door. The door opened, and his young lover appeared, and behind him, he saw a tall man. The man looked at him suspiciously and clenched his fists. Simon couldn't believe that he could run into two tough guys in one day. Otherwise, he would get something from one of them anyway. "Simon, back off." "Sweetheart, it's from our management company." "I'll be right back," she said affectionately to the man. He nodded and went somewhere inside the apartment. She smiled at him so sweetly, but when she turned to Simon, her face immediately darkened. She seemed even more beautiful to him. He stared at her in confusion. Why the hell did you come back? Are you stupid or what? Do you want my husband to throw you down the stairs? She said, almost in a whisper, barely holding back her laughter. I know you took out a loan from me, you idiot. You're poor and still have a loan to pay off. Your wife called me and told me what a fool you are. So, I know you haven't worked anywhere and bring me money from your wife, you ugly bastard. Disgusting. You're not even a man. I thought you were at least earning decently, and everything else could be endured. But you can't even do that. Who needs you, you ugly thing? She did the right thing, and I sent her the pictures. I asked a friend to secretly take them so she could teach you a lesson, you idiot. Why, Alice? You said you loved me, he said, bewildered. He didn't expect, at first, his wife would kick him out of the apartment, and then his mistress wouldn't let him in. Irina laughed so loudly that her echoes reverberated through the hallway. Me love you? Are you stupid or something? Me love you? You're just a little domesticated deer. Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? Men are loved for their actions, their bravery, their ability to provide security, to support their families, and ultimately for their responsibility. Now let's think about what qualities you possess and start crossing our fingers. Oh, and it's not just me who thinks that way. What do you have to be loved for? Living off a woman's money or for being a complete disgrace? You lied to your wife, you lied to me, saying you were not married, that you had your own business, and so on. Yes, after all that lying, no one will forgive you, she snapped. The girl disappeared into the apartment, closing the door behind her. The only thing left on the stairs was the scent of her perfume and nothing more. He stood and looked at the door. He used to go into this apartment as if it were his own home. But now he had neither a home nor a wife nor a mistress. There were no more options left but to go to his mother's village. He would rather cut his own head off, but he wouldn't go to his mother. He just didn't want to work, pay bills, rent, food himself, so he would rather endure his mother's difficult character than do it all himself. He scraped some money from his pockets, all that was left, and headed towards the train station. Simon took his ticket and went to the platform. The bus arrived, and he took his seat. He closed his eyes and saw himself being thrown out of the apartment by the tattooed brute first, then that idiotic poster hanging there for the entire courtyard to see. Then the mistress skillfully brought him down and dropped his self-esteem from +300 to -1,000. He sat on the bus and couldn't believe that life could change catastrophically in just a few hours. Lunch hadn't even arrived yet, and he had already gone from being a husband with a beautiful mistress to being homeless. Simon got off the bus in the village where his mother now lived. 2 hours later, he stood there and thought, was it even worth going, knowing what awaited him? Maybe it was better to just get a job instead. His mother was skilled at brainwashing people and wiping their feet, so they flowed around for several more days. But at the same time, she maintained an aristocratic beauty and restraint. She was an amazing woman, there was no other way to put it. When Simon approached her house, he was stunned. It was very beautiful. Apparently, she had completely renovated it in a couple of years. He saw a statuesque woman sitting on the porch with another woman. She stood up and went towards her son. Simon did not see joy on her face. His mother did not hurry. She did not even smile. Her face expressed either mockery or some kind of solemnity. She was too good looking for her age, and he could not deny it. Why did you come? She said. Do you think that just because your wife kicked you out of the house and your mistress preferred a more capable man, you can come back here? I'm not like your stupid women, and I won't be supporting any capable man, even if it's my son. So, I can give you shelter, give you tea, even let you stay overnight here. But tomorrow, you will leave my house and burst into a delightful adult life. Your wife really taught you a lesson. It's hard to believe that such a dimwit could come up with something like this, but it's pointless. You're 35, and you've returned to your mother's wings. What a shame, she said, letting him into the yard. He entered guiltily, lowering his head. Your sisters earned, will have families, get along with me. So, it's not about upbringing, my dear Simon. You must have inherited your father's bad genes. It's simple math. If 2 out of 3 children are successful, then it's clearly not about upbringing. He entered the house, hiding from his mother's sharp gaze. The man cautiously climbed up the creaky stairs to his old room. He placed his suitcase down and collapsed onto the bed, burying his face in the pillow. He screamed as loudly as he could because he was overflowing with indignation, anger, and resentment. Just yesterday, he was enjoying the sun, the sea, the beach, and a young lover with jealous looks from other men. And now he had returned to his mother's house to endure her snide remarks and humiliations. Tomorrow he would have to move out, and he didn't know what to do. He desperately didn't want to work for peanuts, to survive from paycheck to paycheck. But apparently, there was no other way. He was facing a divorce and a miserable existence because he wasn't capable of anything more. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.